Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at the world of art. You sent us this article, What is Art, ladies and gentlemen? And it's the first in a series. And it really got me thinking, what is art? The article jumps right into it by saying art isn't something you just find in a museum.
It's true. It's interesting because the article challenges us to find art on the street, in our homes, like in the everyday objects that are around us. I mean, the article even goes on to say that's all about perception and how we interact with our surroundings.
So like if I saw a fruit stand at the market, like all beautifully arranged, would that be art? Or am I taking this whole concept a little too far?
Well, that's what makes this so interesting. The article goes as far as to say, and this is a direct quote, life itself is art, which is a pretty bold statement. It definitely makes you stop and think what defines art. Maybe it's not about the actual object, but the way we approach it, our mindset.
This really makes me rethink how I define art. I always thought it had to be something tangible, like something you could see, touch, and something that was intentionally created as art. But this article is saying that art could be an attitude or a way of being. It could be just looking at the world with this creative awareness.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of suggests that art is less about what we see and more about how we see it. It's about taking the time to look for meaning and beauty in the things around us, even in the everyday things we might overlook.
Okay, so the article uses some pretty shocking examples to illustrate this concept. One that really stood out to me, well, it made me laugh, but it also made me question everything, was when they said that canned human feces was sold as art. I mean, can you tell us a little more about that?
You're talking about Murder d'Artista by Piero Manzoni. This was back in 1961. And he created this series of cans that were supposed to be filled with his excrement, and then he sold them for the same price as their weight in gold. This piece really forces us to ask some hard questions about art. Like, what is art really? Is it the object? Is it the concept, the artist's intention, or just the context where it's presented? It really gets you thinking.
Yeah, for sure. And the article goes on to give more examples of unconventional art, like cigarette butts and a urinal, vegetables arranged on a wall, and even a banana that's been duct taped to a wall. I mean, where do you draw the line? Is any of that really art?
Well, these examples really highlight the evolution of art, especially how conceptual art has emerged. This form of art puts more emphasis on the idea behind it than its physical form. So, it's not like admiring a painting. It's more about the conversation that happens around the artwork and what it makes you think about.
Okay, I think I see what you mean. So like Duchamp's fountain, that urinal from way back in 1917, that was kind of like a turning point in how we see art. People had to rethink what they considered art, and it made a space for artists to explore ideas in unconventional ways.
Exactly. And just think about that banana on the wall. That was Maurizio Catalan's Comedian from 2019. It sold for a six-figure amount. And, these pieces aren't just trying to be shocking. They're statements about the market, consumerism, how we decide what's valuable.
So it's like by putting a banana on a wall, Catalan's making a statement about the whole art system, not just the banana.
Right. And the fact that people paid that much for it raises some questions about the art world and its rules about what's considered valuable.
This is making me think about, what happens to more traditional art like landscapes and portraits. Do those pieces lose value and meaning just because they're sitting in a museum?
That's a great question, and the article really gets us thinking about it. It calls these more traditional pieces dead art. They're relics from the past. It argues that the art world is moving toward installations and performances and experiences where the audience actually gets to participate.
So instead of just looking at a painting, we're supposed to be part of it.
Exactly. Think of it this way. If art is like a verb, then traditional art is like reading a beautiful description of food. It might be interesting, but you're not really tasting it. But contemporary art is like cooking the meal and tasting it yourself. You become part of the creative process.
I like that. That makes sense. And the article talks about Jens Heining's Take the Money and Run. He sent empty frames to a gallery. It sounds like a crank, but I bet there's more to it.
You're right. It's a lot like that banana taped to the wall.
As a statement.
This one is about the business of art. Sending empty frames makes us ask, what are we valuing here? The object, the artist's work, the idea behind it, or just the idea of owning art?
Like he's saying, well, if you're going to pay for nothing, here it is.
Right. He wants us to think about the systems that decide what art is worth and whether it makes sense.
I'm really starting to see that art isn't just about the object. It's about ideas and experiences and challenging how we see things.
And that's what makes art exciting. It's always changing. There's this back and forth between what's traditional and what's new.
It makes me wonder, if we're changing how we define art, does it become harder to say what's art and what isn't? Where's the line?
That's the question, right? People have been arguing about that forever. It's a blurry line. And maybe that's okay. Part of what makes art interesting is that it's up to each person. What one person thinks is art might seem crazy to someone else.
So maybe it's more about the discussion, like you said, than finding the right answer. It's about being open to new ideas about art.
Yeah. And this brings us to something else the article says. Even having a beer can be art.
Wait, are we talking about like appreciating the craftsmanship of beer or something?
No, it's more about the experience of it, savoring it, how the taste hits you, how it makes you feel. It's finding the art in that.
So if I was like really present and appreciated my morning coffee, that could be art.
Exactly. It's about changing your view, finding beauty in ordinary things, looking at the world like an artist does.
That's pretty cool. It means art isn't limited to a museum or gallery. It's in the everyday things. What do you think out there? As you go about your day, could you see the art in the way the light hits a building or the cracks on the sidewalk? You know, what could you rethink as art?
It really is amazing how a simple question like, what is art, can change how we see the world.
Yeah, I'm noticing little details now that I never really paid attention to before, the way shadows fall or the textures of different materials.
It's like we've been given a new set of eyes, right? This article has definitely made me rethink my own ideas about art.
And it's funny how art can be so subjective. Like what I think is amazing, someone else might think is totally boring.
You know, that's what makes art so interesting. It's open to each person's interpretation. There's no one right answer when it comes to experiencing art.
So even if I don't get a piece of art, it's still worth spending time with it, just to see what I feel.
I think so. It's about being open to new things and maybe even challenging your own taste. You never know. You might discover something you love that you never thought you would.
This whole deep dive has really changed how I see art. It's not just something you go look at in a museum. It's everywhere.
I agree. It's woven into everything. The way we see the world, how we connect with other people, how we express ourselves. It's all art. In a way.
So for everyone listening out there, as you go about your day, try to keep that in mind. Be curious, be open to the beauty around you. And you never know, you might find art in the most unexpected places.
You might even be inspired to make some art yourself.
That's a great point. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of art. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and that it inspired you to see your world with fresh eyes. Until next time, keep exploring.